Well, hi everyone, thank you very much for watching or listening today. Liam Hartree here with another episode of Presenting Champions. Today got a very special guest, King of the Streets fighter, Storm Donovan. Got to be one of the coolest names in fighting as well, as I was just saying to him, it just naturally goes with being a fighter. Obviously he's competed in King of the Streets, no rules, street fighting, secret locations around Sweden, concrete floor, no rules at all. So we're going to be talking about that today. I think he's also competed in a few other bits and pieces as well. We'll find out more about that. We'll find out more about the mindset of this young man and what it takes to compete in the most brutal form of fighting that you can do anywhere. I think the only thing more extreme than King of the Streets would be pretty much a fight to the death. So we've got some good stuff to talk about today. But before we get into all that, I just want to say big thank you for coming on the show, and it's a pleasure to have you here, champ.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure, absolute pleasure. So getting into it, King of the Streets, obviously they've got a big social media presence. You can see, the fights and everything on YouTube. But I still think the world of no rules fighting is like a mysterious world for a lot of people. They don't go on, they don't know what goes on like behind the scenes and all that sort of thing. So starting at the beginning, what was it that actually inspired you to want to compete with King of the Streets? Where did you first get the idea to sort of join up with them and fight for them?
Well, I saw, I don't know how I got a hold of it, but I saw an old King of the Streets video when I was, I think maybe 15 or 16 years old. And I got this idea, I was just going to do that. And I needed to do that during my lifetime. And that was just cool for me. I needed to do something that was just absolutely mental and get it done. And obviously I wanted to win and then just prove something for myself, as if I want to be the toughest guy, I need to do the toughest shit I can find. And it was.
Yeah, so that was the motivation behind it. Very cool. So like a sort of testing yourself in that way, which is very cool. Now you mentioned about finding this when you were sort of 15 or 16. I don't know if you want to say this or not. So if you don't want to say, just say. But you look quite young now, and the reason I bring this up is obviously a lot of guys who get in there with King of the Streets, they're like more experienced, or even if they're less experienced, they've taken more time to build up to it. If you get what I mean, I'm thinking, oh man, this is it. You jumped right in the deep end and you just got in there. So, how old were you, or are you, when you competed in King of the Streets? If you don't mind mentioning that.
Well, I had actually just turned 18 when I fought in King of the Streets, and it was the first fight I ever had. But I had deep conversations with my trainers at my gym about it, and I think everybody I talked to about it knew that this was just something I was going to do no matter what. And then the people around me chose to support me. And then I did it at a very young age as the first thing in the martial arts world. And I'm happy I started out with a bang instead of starting out slowly, boxing or match or maybe an MMA fight before doing it, because then you start thinking a little bit more about it maybe. But just going in straight away, King of Streets, get it done, over with, then you feel like an MMA fight is nothing compared to a King of the Streets fight.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's what I was going to say. Actually, is because you started it that way. A lot of things now are going to be easier. And don't get me wrong, I have a lot of respect for MMA, boxing, all these other sports. But and I work with those a lot. But yeah, because you've jumped right in the deep end, and you're probably the youngest guy who's fought there. I mean, you're the youngest guy I've heard of who's fought this. There's probably some sort of record there, which I think is
Maybe.
yeah, is very cool as well. To be honest. So very cool. Okay, so with the fight itself, Walk us through, for anyone that's not seen it, because obviously some people watching this will have actually seen it, some people wouldn't have, and all the rest of it. So with that, walk us through the fight, how it went down, what you remember most about it, what the atmosphere was like in there, just anything that sticks with you that you'd like to share, basically.
Well, I'm getting some details about my opponent out maybe a week out because I hadn't been training for very long. I'd only been training martial arts at my local gym for around 3 or 4 months. And I remember those 4 months went by only doing grappling and doing some takedowns, working a lot of my own rule in King of the Street. You can't do submissions. And then I got some information about my opponent saying that he was going to be a boxer. And me and my trainer a week out talked to each other and said, "Shit, I don't do any boxing." So we learned how to do a simple: if he jabs, I'm gonna throw a straight right, and that was basically survive on the feet, take him down, and then ground and pound him until the referee pulls me off. And as you can see in the fight, the first 2 minutes maybe went by just him punching the shit out of me, and I think I hit him with 2 punches, whereas he hit me with 20 in the first like 2 minutes maybe, until I started getting my takedowns in and working the ground and pound game a little bit more. And slowly, as we went into the fight, I knew I had really great endurance, great stamina. I've been working out a lot up until the fight, so I wasn't really scared to run out of air at any point. So I could start feel that my tempo would keep going steady, and I felt like his was going down. I have my trainer; he's shouting it in Danish on the video that my opponent he's tired. I should start to turn up. And as soon as he started saying that, I did it and got the fight done with.
Yeah. Amazing. It's absolutely an amazing story. And as I mentioned at the beginning, some people watching this will know all about King of the Streets, and some people it'll be the first time they've ever, heard of it or whatever, and they'll have that experience where, you and me first had when we first saw it. It's like, what is this? This is next level. So, so that's very cool to touch on it. When after the fight, then as well, this is something that people don't always see in the videos. What happens in the area? Do you sort of rest for a while and then go? Do you talk to your opponent like what? Because obviously, when you see the videos, unless you've been there live, it just sort of stops at that point. And I saw a photo on your Instagram, I think, of you. It must have been after the fight with quite a bit of blood. There's like nighttime and all that. So and that got me to thinking. Straight after the fight, what happened in the aftermath of it?
So like the second the fight stopped and I got pulled off, obviously had like 20 seconds of fame within the ring, walking around, celebrating outside of the cage. And as soon as I stepped out the cage, there was a doctor there to assist me. And he just straight away pulled me over to like this station where they had, I can't remember, 2 or 3 doctors there to help me, and they did their best to stop any bleeding I had, and they looked at my hand because I broke my hand, and yeah, they had a look at basically every little scratch I had and made sure I looked nice. And after that, I think it took about 10 minutes for the doctors to make me look sort of respectable, and they did the same with my opponent. And then we sat down, and me and my trainer, we were over the moon about the results. And then all of a sudden, it just went downhill from there. I started getting really bad. I felt ill. I felt like I was gonna throw up. So we asked, or my trainer went up to the doctors and asked what we should do. We thought about going to the hospital straight away, but it went over. I had some water and I just needed to sit down. Maybe it's also the thing about you had such a big adrenaline rush and then it just falls down from one second to the other that makes you feel a bit ill, maybe. But after that, it was fine. My opponent, he had, I think, the same experience. He just he actually did throw up, but either way, he had two mates over there, and I stood there with my trainer, and we were just like, it was actually great banter afterwards. We were laughing and taking pictures with each other, and yeah, before we knew it, the night was over and we were heading home. So no
Yeah.
hostility.
No, that is something that's very cool about King of the Streets is there is that real respect, because everyone's there because, they really want to fight and they're there more for the experience than like the money or anything else, or any other reason, even the fame. I think they're there for like to test themselves. The respect, and it's not even a question this, but it's fantastic and it's something that, other combat sports could learn a lot from because obviously King of the Streets is as tough as it gets, so those guys they haven't got something to prove in that way that if, they're going to be trash talking and getting in each other's faces. You just want to see who's going to
Yeah,
come out on top, and
yeah,
it's just it's a beautiful setup. The amount of respect they have, and even when I speak to them, even when I send the interviews over, like the amount of respect they have for everybody is it's a great thing, and that's not even a question. That's just a shout out to them. Um, so another thing before we move into like other aspects of your life. Do you think you'll fight for them again? Was this something that you've done now and it's sort of ticked off the bucket list and then that's the end of that, or do you think you're going to go back there and give it another go? Or what are your thoughts on that side of it?
well, I have this bit of like, it's not, it's basically the aftermath of going to King Street. The whole Danish MMA federation, they wanted to, and it ended up being that only I got some restrictions, so I couldn't fight in Denmark for 6 months. And if I ever attended a King of Streets again, even just to watch it, and they were to figure out, then I would never be able to fight in Denmark again for life. And the same would be for my head coach, and maybe they would even put some more restrictions just on my gym. So with my I want to be a professional MMA fighter. I want to go to Cage Warriors and fight one day, and it maybe it just doesn't really add up if I want to take that risk because it's a nice experience. But maybe if I want further down the line to fight in Denmark professionally, it can't be done because of one fight more in King of the Streets. So I've weighed up like the pros and cons, and I think big respect to everybody who fights more than one time in King of the Streets because doing it just once is absolutely nuts. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and I think that was it basically. I have good contact with lots of people still going there. I've mates fighting there ever since I fought there. I still speak to the organizers behind it, but I think that was it for me, like fighting wise in King of the Streets.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That is fair enough. And I thought it might be, when you explained your motivation for doing it in the first place. But also, yeah, I mean, if there's people sort of threatening the gym and all that, it's the politics anyway. But yeah, talking about the future, with your plans from here. Now, I've seen on your Instagram about MMA, obviously a lot of training that you're doing that looks brilliant. And I've seen on there fights, or at least one fight where you were talking about being like an international opponent. You went somewhere else for another fight. So I want to talk a little bit about like any other fights that you've had so far. And this is the last question related to the past, and then we'll go to the future. So, and correct me if I'm wrong with any of this, but you're currently competing in MMA, and is this at the amateur level at the moment that you're
Yeah.
competing? Am I right in? Yeah, I'm right in saying that. So yeah, talk to us a little bit about how that side of things is going, like with the amateur MMA and some of your experiences with that. I don't know loads about this, so you'll have to broaden it out a little bit. But just how that part of your journey is going, I think would be great to give a mention to, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Well, since King of the Streets, I've had two amateur MMA fights, one in Denmark and one in Malmö, Sweden. Um, One opponent, then my Swedish opponent he was amazing. Like he was just fair and square, much better than me. Can't say nothing there, and big respect to him. We had a good fight, even though he just toyed with me. And that's how it goes sometimes. And then my other fight, I lost on a split decision, even though I didn't get hit a single time. Um, like he didn't even jab me. So yeah, that's how it goes sometimes, I guess. Either way, if you want to be a professional MMA athlete, then all these amateur fights you shouldn't care. You should obviously you should do everything you can to win. But I think the best mindset is to maybe just take every single experience you can, say yes to every fight you can, and then just take it for the experience as it comes. Learn from every little thing you can, and say, okay, that's how it goes, and whatever future you have, you'll get anyways. You're in it for the long run. You're not in it to win one amateur fight, anyways.
Mm. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's the right mindset, and it's something I've heard from some of the top champions where they give that advice. That basically you do what you do as an amateur, but when you're professional, you're starting all over again, and the only thing you're taking with you is the experience. And when I met Floyd Mayweather, he said that to when he was speaking and everything like that. But so many champions have said that, just take the experience, forget about the results. So you've got the right mindset there for it. Talking about the future, obviously you want to be like a professional MMA fighter. Talk to us a little bit about that dream, in terms of like basically what you're aiming for, because we've talked about what has happened, and I do want to give a mention to what will happen, because in a way you're just starting out on your journey. Obviously, these are like baby steps, but I can see that you've got the right mindset. You've definitely got that killer instinct to be a fighter. That I can see it in your face. Not everyone has that. Some people have just the athletic side of it. You seem to have both. So I can see these other things going on. But in terms of your dream, in terms of where you see yourself in sort of, you know, a year, 2 years, however long you want to go out, really. Talk to us a little bit about your future plans, basically.
So, like, the big dream is a lot of, I think, guys that want to do MMA professionally, their big dream is to go to the UFC. And obviously, never say never, but my big dream is actually to go to the organization called Cage Warriors, UK based, become the champion and stay the champ there. Like, make it my fortress there. Like, I'm the champ. And I think a lot of people in Cage Warriors, the professional athletes, they respect the organization, but they're there to get to the UFC, just like Conor McGregor, Paddy Pimblett, so on. These guys that are now in the UFC. Um, but I want to become the champion and then defend the belt until I someday retire. I haven't seen anyone done that before, so that's been my goal since day one. Um, Within like the next or the near future, the next year, maybe two, I think this year I've had a big injury in my knee, so I'm just back from that. I think my goal this year is just to have one fight. We have two amateur levels here in Denmark of MMA classes. So we call it MMA A class, that's like professional. Then we have B class and C class. So I think I want just calm down, respect my injury before making it worse, and then have one MMA C class fight just during 2022, and then you can't just say from one day to another that you're a professional. Obviously, you need some people to put the money in for you, vouch for you. I mean, I need some highlights before that can happen.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's definitely a good plan, that you've got laid out there. It's a great dream, and to be honest, I can definitely see you getting to that level, and I promise I'm not just saying that for the sake of
Thank
saying. I can really, because it's never it's never a guaranteed thing. I mean, injuries can happen and things can go wrong, and it's never a guaranteed thing. But I can see where I'm getting at is I can see you're laying like a solid foundation, if you like, that you're building on, and sort of laying that down the right way, and sort of building it up step by step. And obviously, if you keep doing that, you should go all the way with it. And like I say, it's never a guaranteed thing, but I can really see that. I can really see the future
you.
be very bright. So so that's all good. So the last couple of things, to sort of touch on here. One of them is, obviously, we've talked a bit about the physical training and what you were doing with the grappling and all that side of things. I'd like to touch on the mental aspect of combat as well, because I feel it's overlooked. So it's just this question and then one more, and then we'll wrap it up. But the mental side of combat, I think, is overlooked, and it's certainly not seen by fight fans. It's only known amongst fighters. On the build up to a fight, amateur, professional, well, when you get to professional, we'll talk about that. Obviously, King of the Streets. On the build up to that, what's going through your mind on the run up to it, like in a sort of a fight week or in the days before? Not so much with nerves and things like that, because I think if people are going to fight, they want to fight. That's it. But do you visualize? Do you think about the fight? Do you not think about it? Is your mind blank? I just want to get a feel for like your mindset on the build up to a fight, basically.
Yeah, so like when I decide now my camp has started, I want this fight, I know a date, or at least if you don't know a date, but like I want to fight from now, then in September maybe, then I know what I have to do to be in what I think is my peak physical shape. And as long as I follow my plan, then I'm not as nervous, or basically not even nervous for the fight, because should I get knocked out, then like I've done everything I can in my preparation for it. So that's how it is. What should I do different? Nothing, because I did everything I could. I did what I believe was best for me. Instead of, if you show up, it's like going to an exam maybe, or a meeting you haven't prepared for or something. If you haven't done your homework, then obviously you can sit afterwards and kick yourself and be like, I should just have done this in the preparation. But if in the preparation you believe I've done everything I can, then I'm not nervous for the fight really. So yeah, I think that's it really for me. It's just stick to the plan. I've had one of my fights where I've maybe not really stuck to the plan and I was shitting myself before the fight. And the other fights, I've been totally calm, no problems.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. Preparation it is key. Is the only thing. Victory loves preparation, as they say. So I can totally get my head around that. But it's just it's something I put in these interviews to give it a little different spin, because people don't talk about the mental side. They think it's all physical, and obviously it is a physical thing. But if you don't have the right mindset, I've seen people lose just based on that. When you see like a more traditional weigh-in and two people come together, you can often tell, who's going to win then and there based on the way they're feeling, the way they're thinking,
Yeah,
even
definitely. I
even
have
if
this
one.
thing about often with, it's also about which opponent I have. If you know the opponent and the opponents have had fights before, and you can see if I've got a really aggressive opponent, then maybe like if you want to go head on collision, then maybe it's a 50-50 bout you're going to have then, because you're both just swinging. But if it's a bit more like calm or average amount of aggression, then I might turn up a little bit myself. So like these things I can visualize beforehand. And I visualize the first 10 seconds of round one and the first 10 seconds of round two and so on. So like I have at least a plan for that, because it's a fight. You never know what's going to happen. He might shoot a takedown the same time I shoot a takedown or so on. You can never predict these things. At least you can like try and have a plan for every scenario.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. It's a good way of looking at it. It's a good way of thinking of it. The last question, just to sort of wrap this up, is we've talked about some questions that other fighters will relate to, some questions that fans will relate to. On the subject of fans, I mean, you're just starting out in your journey, but you probably already have like a bit of a following, from doing King of the Streets, from MMA, and things like that. I can imagine. So just to give a shout out to supporters, and people who are supporting you in your journey, whatever form it may be, whether it's just sending a positive message on social media and that's it, or whether it's people that actually know you and actually encourage you, in day-to-day life. They say no man's an island, and I know obviously fighting is a lonely sport in that way, because obviously you've got to do what you've got to do when you're in there, and that's it. It's down to you. But on the build up to it, there are other people that make a difference. So and fighting wouldn't be possible without them. So I just want to give a shout out to them, to the people that support you. I don't mind who you mention, whether it's your coach and trainers, whether it's people on social media, whether it's your family, whatever. But let's give them a shout out. What would be some words, you know, that you'd share with them, that you'd say to them?
I went to King of the Streets and was just Storm Donovan, nobody. And since then, I live in Copenhagen. A normal night out, maybe if I go for beers with mates or somebody, like people come up and take pictures with me. It's like it's crazy because I'm just a lad who's trained for 4 months, done a fight, and I don't want to say like because that's a cliche, I'm not that big, but in somewhat you are changed. I'm not a famous guy or anything yet, at least, but I mean the recognition you get is unbelievable, and the support, and I get Instagram DMs weekly, if not daily, about supporters messaging me, contacting me, especially when I have a fight. Actually, a lot of people write to me. I'm really happy for that. I know you just mentioned fighters, like you're a one-man army in one way because you're alone when you're actually in the cage, but I've I see this as I want to say a team sport, but maybe more like a family sport because it's in the gym that you make fighters. If you're the best in the gym and you just go hard with everybody and you just win every single sparring round, then there's no like you don't get any benefit for it. So the same, we need to thank those guys that are better than you in the gym. We need to thank the guys who are a lot worse than you in the gym. So you can practice some of the stuff you're not good at against the not so good guys, maybe, or not as good as you, and then really practice some defense against the guys who just normally would beat the shit out of you. So like a big thanks to literally everyone because I get a lot of support.
Yeah, it's good. There's a good lesson in there as well. Actually, what you were saying about the gym and you know not winning every round. So actually, I would say yeah, any other fighters who are starting out there, listen up to that because that's some good advice. But yeah, as well as that, it's a good shout out to you know to all these people because there's a lot of people with fighters that put a lot of work in behind the scenes as well, and it's not seen in the public, you know. And obviously, when you're in a fight game, you see the fight, and the fight is sort of the pinnacle of what's happened. You know, it's the tip of the
Yeah,
iceberg. But there's so
yeah,
much that's gone on behind it. Things that go right, things that go wrong. You know, the way the person's thinking and feeling, what's happened in their camp. You know, there's so much stuff. And unless you've been in a camp, like obviously I've been in so many camps, like with the media side of things, you see what goes on. But from people on the outside, you don't see what goes on. So, you know, I want to give that a mention as well. But you know, we've talked about some good stuff. We've gone into some good material. I'm well happy with this. I think people will love it. So the last thing for me to do is once again just say a big thank you for your time. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for being so open and sort of sharing everything that you've shared. Thank you.
yeah. Well, thanks for having me. Like it's been brilliant.
Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.